Hi, everybody. It's Mr. T again. Thank you for listening to one of the many podcasts I've been doing for the last couple of months. Today, we have a special guest, let's say guest. We've got Shelley here. And Shelley Stewart given me the honor to be here. I really, really appreciate your time. Shelley is a busy lady. She's the president and CEO for one of the largest, for the largest, I would say, title companies in the area. And the reason I've asked her to be here, I figured in real estate, one of the biggest things people have questions about and wonder, and part of the biggest, it's one of the biggest items in a transaction, real estate transaction, is title insurance. And buyers ask me, who pays that, and what is that, and how much is it, and why do I have to have it? And so, folks, title insurance is a big deal, and I've done this for a long time. This is why I felt I should bring one of the best over here to explain, what it is and why you should have it and why it's worth every dime. Shelley, welcome.
First of all, thank you so much for having me today and all the kind words.
You're welcome.
So, title insurance is probably the most misunderstood type of insurance available to consumers out there. Title insurance is different than your average insurance policy like you would consider with your life insurance or your homeowners insurance or your auto insurance. And in those types of insurances, they cover future events, whatever happens from the time you purchase your policy to whatever happens in the future. Whereas with title insurance, it covers prior events. It covers the period of time before you own the property so that the purchaser of a property can be assured that they own that property and that title free and clear from any liens or judgments or anything adversary to the ownership of your home or land. So title insurance is important when you're purchasing real estate because it assures the buyer that they do in fact have clear title and ownership. And historically, at least in this market, in the Daytona Beach area of Volusia County market, the seller provides that title insurance and pays for that title insurance policy to assure the buyer that they are buying and purchasing, and the seller is confirming that they have clear title to the property.
So if I may, basically what title company does, and if I'm making a mistake, tell me. Basically, they look at the history of the property that you guys are, whoever is buying. So they go back and I guess you call it chain of title.
Correct.
Which is the history of the ownership. And they make sure nobody is going to come back today and say, hey, we poured the concrete on that pool and we never got paid.
Right.
So this is what the title company, so if they do come back, guess what? The title company will handle that because they did all the searches. They went back and checked the history. And I guess that gives the new buyer the full right to this property. Nobody can come and...
Correct. It's called marketable title, actually. But
yes.
I think it's very underestimated as far as what it really takes to do the research on the title. Because if you think about it, it's kind of fascinating. The public records and the commerce of real estate in the United States goes all the way back to the Pilgrims. So our land records go all the way back to the first settlers. And the legal descriptions, interestingly enough, in the original colonies are plotted out by posts and barns and unusual structures, that were at that time. So very difficult to research. Now, obviously, Florida is not one of the original colonies, but we go back to the Spanish land grants when Spain took over. And so you have to go back, depending on what you find in the chain of title. You have to make sure that the documents have been prepared correctly, legally executed, legal descriptions, names, even down to notary acknowledgments and jurats relating to the type of document, probates, easements, covenants and restrictions, etc., that all tag along with the property. And even the state of Florida has rights to some properties, specifically those that are on water, wherein they have, and in the Halifax River, they have the right. They literally own the water underneath and up to a point of the land. The subsurface rights and all, and they have the right to actually expand for
wow, like the seawall
maritime,
or whatever.
Or if a war were to break out, they have the rights. So there's certain things like that is uncovered, and then there's also mineral rights, which is really interesting because a lot of people think that Florida doesn't really have any minerals like gas, like Texas, but we do, and there's actually a family in town from many, many years ago that has a lot of reservations of.
Yes, I've sold some of these
they
properties.
are.
If you had gold under you, it's theirs.
Yeah.
So that so this is also again, I always put myself as a buyer or a seller. Why should I go Southern Title, or who picks the title, and why, and why am I paying for it? And so, guys, like she said earlier. In our area, the seller automatically pays for stamps on title and the stamps on deed and title insurance. Now, it is different when you buy new construction with a builder. The builders control that, and they say that we don't have those costs built into our base price, so the buyer pays for it. So I've run into sellers, they're like, hey, I paid this stuff when I bought, and now I got to pay it again when I'm selling. I still hear that every day, but that's new construction. So on general real estate, so if there's set rates with the state of Florida that the title company has to follow.
Right.
And I always say first 100,000 is $575. And anything after you get a discount drops down to $5 per thousand. So the next 100,000 will cost you $500, and on and on. So, and then there's other fees, search fees, this stuff. But there is a difference. Believe me, and nothing against any other title company, because I've had nothing but the greatest experience with Southern Title. Their follow-ups, they're so professional. It's incredible. They don't miss a thing. And they run it by so many of their attorneys behind the scenes. I personally have closed just about everything I buy, and they've not dropped the ball in any way as far as the setting up the appointments ahead of time with the buyer and seller. One pet peeve I have with a title company is the transaction is going and nobody hears anything from anybody.
Right.
So I call that leaving people in the dark. So what does a title company do? It's not just insurance guys. Title company is the people that basically are the middle person between the buyer and the seller, and they make sure everyone comes to a happy closing, to where everyone comes to the table. There's no surprises. If there are surprises, they will reach out to you. And they also inform me, which is what I've always loved. They tell me, hey, Lee, there's a problem with the lender. You may want to reach out to the buyer's agent and see what's going on. And that, I appreciate that, because that lets me know, hey, there's an issue we need to resolve so we still can close on time.
Right.
And these are all the differences you see, because people show up at the closing table, and I'm sure you've all seen this. Why am I paying for the buyer's title insurance? Why am I paying? Because, nobody told them up front. So I, as an agent, personally, up front, I tell people you have approximately 2% in closing costs. I mean, okay, it could be 1.5, it could be 2.5, but and what does that cover? Well, it does cover title insurance, all the stamps on deed. What is that? Why am I paying that? Well, again, in our area, if you're buying a $300,000 house, it's $2,100, 3 times 7. Okay, so I tell people, hey, be ready. You're going to have, that's all. So even though I lay everything out up front, people do get sticker shocked. And this is what, again, I recommend all the title companies should do this, is I'm going to start doing this. So what I've learned is people get sticker shocked when they come to a closing. And then it puts that closing agent on the spot, because the closing agent is really just representing, both sides kind of. They're just saying, here's both sides of the transaction. We put it all together between your lender and your bank who you owe a mortgage to. And then here is the seller is saying, well, I'm not paying any of this because nobody went over it. So maybe the best thing to do for me, even after all these years, is to get a prelim HUD.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make my title companies do that from now.
Yep.
Just get me a prelim HUD right when I go under contract. So it just happened to me recently with another deal where the seller just was shocked, and even though we had everything in writing from both sides. So this is what I want to say about the difference between these bigger title companies and especially Southern Title is that they leave no stone unturned. They really do a thorough job to make sure nothing also comes back on them. And that's what you want. You want a title company to where you go to sell this house a year or 2 or 3 years and say, oh my gosh, there is a second mortgage open from when you bought this foreclosure. Nobody ever closed it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to, again, give it back to Shelley. If you have any experiences or memories or things, you could just share with us. So because people think it's all just going to go right through, but you got to be careful.
And, the other thing I want to say, too, before I go into some stories, is that, I don't think people realize that, again, title insurance, unlike your homeowners insurance, it's a one-time premium. You pay it one time, when you purchase the property or you get a loan, and it's good for the rest of your life. So, while the premium may seem a little bit high, again, it's promulgated by the state, so there's not a lot we can do about it, and the state has studies done that, it's important to keep the solvency of the insurance underwriters, for claims, but so yeah, it's a one-time premium. Even if you pass away, the coverage can go on to your heirs. And when a seller signs a deed, they call it a warranty deed, and they call it a warranty deed because there are warranties within the body of that document that the seller is warranting certain things to the buyer. So in a way, it also can help, kind of protect the seller in that we've given you a title insurance policy. They know that title work has been done and that they're, more or less kind of paying attention to their ability or, providing that additional warranty to, or as in the warranty deed to the buyer. So now as far as claims go, I think everybody just thinks there isn't any such thing as them, and I'm going to tell you,
it's complicated business.
And it's the biggest investment of your life. You have your home, your memories, your family, your children, and nobody wants to ever feel that their house is in jeopardy of being lost or having to go into litigation to defend something. And of course, title insurance does cover that, any litigation fees. Relative to, any type of suit. And people can file suit against anyone for any reason. It can be just totally frivolous, but you still have to defend it. But so right now, first of all, absolutely, definitely title insurance claims, and they are very ugly. But our latest threat that we're seeing in the market now, shocker, is cyber fraud. And an interesting one that we're seeing now is bad actors from other countries. And the scheme of it is basically that we've had several attempts at Southern Title, but thank God we've caught them post-closing.
Wow.
But what happened is the bad guys, and these guys happen to be from Nigeria, they check the public records out and they find a vacant land, and they then perpetrate themselves to be the owner of that property. And they're always on vacation in Europe or they're somewhere else, but they're not in the States. The realtor just deals with them over the phone and via email. They never meet because they're out of the country on holiday or whatever. And they're astute enough to look for the vacant lands because they know that the people aren't living on them. There isn't a home on them. And generally they're looking probably likely through the real estate tax records in the county. And they find out if the owner is not local in the area. So they then enter into a contract. I generally cash deal, if you will. So there's not any finance to sell they go to sell the property, and they're not the true owners. And so then what happens? And we had one case actually in Flagler County where we had a fraudulent seller on a $250,000 land in Hammock Dunes, and the buyer was chomping at the bit, was going to build a $2 million home on it, already had the gopher turtle thing, already paid to do stuff on the property. And we ended up asking for the passport. And we reviewed the passport, and we just were feeling a little funny on it. And we ended up sending it out to have it reviewed, and lo and behold, it was a fraudulent passport.
That's amazing.
So we prevented the sale. And if you think about it now, one, if you had title insurance, in this case, had it gone through, you really would want your policy, because you would have ended up, they would have lost $250,000 because the original owner of the land, still technically, it's a fraud case, so it would be a title insurance claim. But then they would have built a $2 million house on it. So that would have been $2.2 million loss for these buyers based on fraud. And there's an epidemic proportion of it going on. We had another incident in Deltona. We've had a couple here in the area. And it's become an industry issue. And I ended up going to Tallahassee, and I met with CFO Petronis's office because I said, we got to do something about this, because we have to protect the consumers, because they don't know. And the realtors are dealing with somebody remote, and we've been able
all the time.
But we've been able to uncover it through the passport. So now every time we do a closing with a person that's not in the United States, even if they are supposedly American citizens, and of course they say they are the owners, the names of the people that own the property, we require copies of the passports, and then we review them and make sure. And that's how we found most of the fraud. And you'd be shocked.
I don't know how you figured out that was a fraudulent passport. Most people just look at the copies. They're like, good enough. There's a picture. You
just go through. Hey, okay, they're not going to take that. But so listen. So I got another title company to go with me to Tallahassee, because he's the current president or incoming president of FLTA. He was also seeing a lot of these issues. So as we're sitting in front of Petronis's aide that was working, he's a lawyer, kind of going through to explain, this is the situation. How can we come up with a system that, this gets complicated, but I have an idea how we could have a database for these attempts. And I lost my train of thought.
How he, what he came up with.
So I brought my hands-on examples, and I had, the documents so I could kind of educate and show them. And I had this passport, one of the passports that was fraud. And then lo and behold, John, the gentleman that came up with me, he pulled up some of his examples. Same passport.
Same
fraudulent passport. He has a title company in Tampa, and I'm in Daytona, and this, and the same passport.
He caught that too?
Yeah. Well, no, he's got some claims going on.
Oh, he does.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Anyway, so there's an example of what can happen.
Ouch. Yeah.
And when you really start thinking about
the wire fraud,
the wire fraud is terrible.
They hack. They know we're buying or selling, and they intercept wiring instructions. They replace the numbers.
And here's how that's happened. That's epidemic too. What basically happens is, even though your title agency should have encrypted emails so that the information going, all this non-public information, your driver's licenses, your account numbers, our escrow account numbers, et cetera, are protected within the encryption and within our network. Once the email goes outside of Southern Title, then it goes into a consumer's email, which no consumer has encrypted emails. Yeah. And how they're so smart doggone it, is they follow real estate transactions. So they know when people are buying or selling, or even some realtors, they go in and they know how to hack in, and they sit and they wait. And then as soon as they see either contract's been done or the money starts, the communication with the title company starts to gear towards money, that's when they come in, and then they perpetrate themselves generally as the title company. That's happened to us too. And they literally can take, now I'm not a hacker, so I can't really, but they basically take an email that looks like mine. They take my signature line or my closer's signature line, and then they change a number or two on the account, and then the funds that the buyer is wiring to us to purchase gets diverted to the hacker over generally in Nigeria, sadly, and the money's gone. And the FBI will not investigate really pretty much anything under $1 million because there's so much of it. They just can't handle it all.
I had a closing a couple of years ago fell apart. They hacked into his account, the buyer's account, and they drained it.
Yep.
And the wife called, she goes, listen, they took all of our money, $400,000.
Yeah.
They took it all.
That's why
Unbelievable.
and where Southern Title excels there is that we have our own in-house, I think we're the only one in the county, own in-house title, our technology division, and we have a cybersecurity expert literally on staff. He is a CISSP and a CISM and a ethical hacker. He's got 3 degrees in it. And some of these designations, there are very few in the world. I mean, when you look at all of the millions of people in the world, there's only several hundred of them. And he actually went through Colin Powell's class and got his designation through I can't think of the name of the entity that Colin Powell put together. And now actually they literally still stay in touch with him to keep up on real estate, what's going on. So it is an investment. It takes money to have that type of level of employee and security. But yet when you're talking about, the vulnerabilities in the industry and the real estate market with fraud and cyber theft, that we choose to make that investment and to try to do our best to protect our customers and our realtors, because obviously if it goes bad, everyone's going to go down. Everybody's going to get sued. We're all going to have to pay, nobody, and it's really...
And this is big stuff now. There's also little stuff these guys catch. Like, hey, your driveway is on this guy's property for the last 20 years. Or the fence or this shed, and these... Also, guys, when people go buy these foreclosures and stuff, I mean, I've been one of them. I mean, they said, hey, there's a second mortgage that wasn't paid on the last time you went around, and the seller is freaking out. But then they go out and they try to find who that lender is. They somehow solve it. Just all depends, I guess.
Yeah, foreclosures are complicated when it comes to titles, because you have to make sure all the interests of anyone that had a lien or was due money has been foreclosed out in that foreclosure. And so there is another aspect of, the technicality of what has to be examined when looking at the title. But again, it's the biggest investment of your life. You need to have title insurance. I mean,
and people think that, okay, a lot of people call me, they say, well, I want to sell my house, but I don't have the title to it. It's not like a car. I'm like, don't worry about it. You don't need to have anything. It's all recorded. We'll just go get it from the county. It's all online. People don't know, really. They trust us as professionals, and then we turn around and trust whoever is, our go-to title company or anything else. But you have to just be, there's also, there's not just title insurance. Again, a title company, in order to give you the title insurance, they do city lien search. So make sure there's no liens from the water department. There's no lien on the head of the seller or the buyer. Sometimes there's IRS liens on the people. So then the seller is going to sell. Hey, Mr. Seller, do you know that there is an IRS lien on your head, and we're going to take 30 grand and give it to IRS at closing. They'll be like, what? And a lot of them say, yeah, I know. you know. So also estoppel letters is one of the things that delays some closings. The buyer or seller say, why am I being charged for this 250 and 150 and all these fees? There's really no cap. They could charge you more, but the estoppel letter, if you would explain, the whole process, like when I turn in a contract to you, like I like people to know, like, how hard you guys work to get this to the closing, getting the payoffs for the seller, talking to the buyer's lender. These guys do so much work for really just to provide title insurance. They do all of it.
Well, basically, in addition to writing title insurance, we also fulfill the terms of the contract for sale and purchase. So whatever's written in that contract, we make sure that all the conditions are met. We handle the disbursement of funds. We prepare the documents. We write the policy. So when the contract comes in, we open up the file, and we generally hold the earnest money deposit. So it's always good to have a non-involved party, third party, person not related to the buyer or the seller, that is holding the earnest money deposit in case there's ever a dispute. And we have to, obviously, it's another positive is that it's held within accordance to the Florida statutes relating to escrows. So, you have a level of security in knowing that it's been being handled and managed properly. And then at that point, we, obviously we start our title search. And then once the title search comes back and we learn what we need to clear or take care of in order to be able to insure it, we start addressing those issues, clearing the title, and then we order the estoppels. And an estoppel basically is a letter that says this is the amount of money that's owed. And when you're talking about a condominium or a homeowners association subdivision, it provides, what the dues are, when they're paid, or, if they're paid monthly, quarterly, annually. If there's a lawsuit. In a condo, if there is any type of approval process that the buyer needs to go through, if there's any assessments coming up. And so we make sure that those are current so that when the buyer takes title to the property, that aspect of owning the property they can be assured of is clear. Now I'm going to jump down a rabbit hole. One of the interesting things we're seeing right now, though, is since the condominium collapse in South Florida, I can't think of the name of it, but
yes.
Yeah, the condominiums now the boards are now realizing that any repairs that needed to have been done on a condo, they're moving to it.
I just paid $4,000 assessment on a little condo on the mainland off Clyde Morris. $4,000. It's coming up.
Yeah, it's crazy. And some of them are really high, so there's an assessment coming, but we've seen where we've ordered we call it an estoppel letter, but a letter from the condo association, tell us the status of the dues, and we know what we have to collect and bring it current. And between the date that we've gotten the estoppel letter from the condo to the date that we close, the condo board has met and then made an assessment. And so then buyer closes, and then the next thing you know, they're getting a letter from the condominium association that says, well, you owe us $10,000 or whatever the case, or $4,000. And that's a shock.
Yeah.
So, they're and that kind of gets into closing documents.
That's where your agent should always, whenever Mr. T or any other agent represents you, you got to do your homework.
That's right.
You got to tell the condos, may I see the minutes of your meetings?
Yeah.
Because in those minutes, you'll read possible upcoming assessment. Or there's a law in Tallahassee, I don't know if it passed. That's what it is they're going to make the condos to do a structural review of the buildings every year or every 3 years or whatever. So the attorneys for the HOAs or condo associations are telling them, do it now. You need to get these buildings, and then they go bring a company, which is hard to find. They go shop and they bring engineers. They assess the buildings and they say, oh, this balcony is bad, that balcony is that wall. Okay, $400,000 will take care of these 5 buildings. And then everybody has to pay. So it's just, honestly, it just happened to me individually, and they wanted all $4,000 in just like 3 months. And I told them it's barbaric, it's not fair. You need to break this down into like 1,000 every quarter. And they're like, you never show up to these things. I was like, yeah, because I trust you guys going to take care of me. But anyway, I was on a Zoom, and finally they agreed to break it up in 3 payments, every 3 months, starting like, I don't know, June. So anyway, she's right. You got to be very careful when you buy in any kind of association. Make sure there's no upcoming assessments. Yeah, the seller put no, I have no knowledge, I don't know, signed it, but between the time they get the contract, you write an offer, it could be 30, 60 days, and they're going through the motions, notifying the owners, and a vote. Once they pass it, it's done. You owe that.
And let me give a compliment to you, because obviously we deal with a lot of realtors.
Thank you.
And very few go to the extent of literally going looking at those minutes and making sure that they're protecting their party, in the transaction. So we appreciate that, because, it makes everybody, the expectation from a consumer is when you close and you buy a home, everything's good, free and clear. And, there's still those things that can come up.
Well, I do business with who is professional. Honestly, and my buyers look at me and say, hey, Lee, what do you think? Who should I go with? And I have a list of people, obviously, list of inspectors. I brought one here. I brought a list of insurance people. I have a list of mortgage people. But again, the term I learned years ago in sales is, don't leave anybody in the dark. Mm-hmm. And so many people do that. I go sign some contract, let's say for a pool, and I hear nothing. So I have to start chasing. Hey, what happened? Did you get the permit? Have you applied for a permit? When are we starting? I hear nothing, but you got $20,000 of my money. And that is, to me, is the biggest pitfall businesses have, is customer service. And when Andrea was there, this is what we loved about Andrea. She always kept us informed. Every problem, she would call and say, Lee, this is what's happening. This is what I'm doing to fix it. I'm going to call you back. And, and this is where your business lasts. That's how I've been in business. I opened Executive Realty in 2001. Before that, I worked for this biggest builder in the area, ICI. Of course, that's where I learned real estate, ICI. And before that, I was in retail. And again, I can't tell you, the only reason I'm in business, one guy doing 20 million plus every year consistently, is customer service. I don't keep people in the dark. I keep them posted. I educate them up front, the selling process, and what to expect when you go to a closing table. What does a title company do, and what are these charges? We explain them over and over sometimes, but people do forget. Sometimes they don't listen. And that's when you got to do it again before the closing. So let me tell you what's coming up. Is you're going to go Southern Title, and they're going to sit you down. They're going to do the buyer's side separate maybe, or with you. You need to wire your funds a week earlier. They don't accept checks. So we explain a lot of these you guys don't know, but I actually explain a lot of stuff that, hey, they're going to call you from Southern Title. This is what.
That's great.
So, we prepare them. It's all about preparing people. And that's what I do business with people that prepare people, that don't leave them in the dark, take their money and run, and you don't hear from them for months. You're like, did I get scammed? So, and again, I appreciate you. Yeah, anything else you can put in to educate, anyone that's listening to us. And again, I appreciate Shelley, President and CEO of Southern Title, is here with me. This is, again, an honor to have you. I know how busy you are.
Well, I know how busy you are.
Thank you. I wish I was busier and we need more listings.
How do we contact? How do we find them?
Yeah.
So, Southern Title has actually 5 locations in Volusia County, 4 in the Daytona Beach area. Well, 1 in Ormond, Beachside, Port Orange, and Mainland, and then an office in Deltona. Our corporate office is on Bevel Road, right up there near Williamson. And if you want to contact Southern Title, the office number is 386-760-9010. Or you can contact me directly. My email is S as in Shelley, Stewart, STEWART, at S as in SouthernTitle.com. And we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And thank you, Lee, so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming. Again, folks, this is not a sales pitch podcast. I'm just trying to educate people on different aspects of real estate. And I hope you're enjoying it. If you also need a go-to realtor to ask a question, again, everybody knows me as Mr. Non-Pressure, friendly, easygoing guy. I'm not going to call you 1,800 times after you call me because I'll be fishing. No, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, if you have any questions about anything, if you need help, let's say you need a painter or whatever, just call me for anything. I will do my best to answer or assist you in any way. And thank you for listening to me. I'm working on some insurance companies to bring for the next episode. I've got a couple of emails out to a couple of insurance companies so we can find out what's going on with this roof business. And thank you again, Mr. T, saying goodbye, 386-299-8989. And again, don't forget to check my website, mrtsells.com, MRTSELLS.com. Thank you so much.